Hello, hi, assalamualaikum. Welcome back to IIUM Brilliance only on IIUM TV. But this time round, our live show will be a virtual live show with me, Arina Nabila, as the host. And of course, I will not be alone tonight as I will be accompanied by two beautiful, intelligent, and talented guests for tonight. In today's episode, the topic that we'll be discussing is in the perception of orators. When it comes to the word orators, of course, our guest today will be the debaters. Thus, without further ado, let me introduce to all of you our guests for tonight that are Sister Ani Sophia and Sister Aida. Hello, hi.
Hello.
Assalamualaikum.
Hello.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you for joining, spending your time to join our live show for tonight, or should I say, Malam Raya kan? But anyway, before I proceed to ask the questions to both of you, let me tell all of you the achievements of our guests. So for Sister Aida, okay, her latest achievement is being the grand finalist in novice category from Malaysia Women's Debate Championship, and her position is being the head public relations of IIUM English Debate Club, being the treasurer for Manufacturing and Engineering Student Associations. IIUM Brilliance hosts and floor manager for season 1 and season 2, and of course the Sports Bureau Global Ummatic Fest as the head assistant. Whereas the latest achievement for Sister Ani Sophia is Australization's 2020 ESL Octo finalist, Nationals 2019 Novice finalist, and IIUM Asians 2019 Novice first runner-up. And the position is she being the Malaysia Debating Council Assistant Secretary and IIUM English Debate Club Assistant Secretary. So, moving on to the questions for Sister Aida. So, Aida, it is obvious that you held a lot of high position within the organizations and clubs. So, how you keep up or you balance your life as a student and also your society and club matters?
Okay, first and foremost, I'm sorry, I'm not just used to being the guest. So, but like first and foremost, I don't usually
Yeah.
join like club activities and all that stuff for the paper, like to look good on paper. I join them purely because I enjoy like working with other people, meeting new people, making new friends, and then with every position I get, it's usually like I learn something new along the way. So I really treasure those um, experiences that I get out of them. And then when it comes to balancing, I'm gonna admit, it's not like a very easy job in the first place to balance out everything. And I've encountered like a lot of burnout sessions in the past year alone that I lost count. But that in itself, I feel like for me personally, having a good journal or a good, what do you call it? A good journal or a good planner for you to plan your daily life and all that stuff. Because it's really helpful. For me as a visual person, I can easily see my commitment deadlines. I can see what I need to do, who I need to see, what I need to get things done along the way and all that stuff. But yeah, like besides that, I don't really have any other tips on like balancing. It's all about like good time management and having a good planner that you feel comfortable using plays a huge role in itself. Yeah.
Yeah, true. Because I think like most of the students feel very guilty in joining one particular society or one particular
Mm-hmm.
club because they are actually scared in like if they fail or they can't catch up with their academics, so that
Yeah.
they decided not to join any club or society. So I think that is one of the things that they are not supposed to do because with joining the club or the society, they actually mix around with all different kinds of people.
True.
All
True.
right. For sister, am I right, Aida?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
Anis, uh, how do you improve yourself being a speaker from time to time? Because speaker, right?
Okay.
So can you share with me how you improve or you maintain yourself?
All right. So basically, Most of my public speaking experience probably comes from debating itself because I've been debating since I was in high school when I was in Form 1. So it's probably my 8th year debating now. But truthfully, admittedly, I think that a lot of the times I don't think that I was actually a good speaker from the start. So there were a lot of rocky beginnings, a lot of rocky middle, like rocky things I have to encounter along the way. So I had this mindset that if I wanted to continue speaking in public in university, if I wanted to continue being a debater, I had to do a lot of work on how I want to learn to become better. So this looks like me having to deal with my trainers, deal with my seniors especially, who contributed a lot to my learning process because it is through their own inspiring experiences that I think to myself, that is something that I need to achieve at the end of the day. Like I want to graduate with good achievements in debating or in public
Mhm.
speaking in general. So because of that motivation, I think it's important for me to fully go through like the feedback that people give me after a public speaking or after a debate speech, for example, when people tell me these are things that you need to repair on or these are things that you need to read on to become a better speaker in the future. Those are things that I take into account for my next training sessions. And I will spend a lot of my time into thinking what are the ways in which I could speak clearer or in which I could substantiate my arguments better, for example. So admittedly, I don't think I am the right person to speak about like, improvements per se because I'm just a first year student, right? I have a lot way to go before making like significant improvements myself. But I can tell you that if you learn from what people tell you and if you have that motivation that you know that there is a specific goal you want to achieve at the end of the day, then it is not impossible for you to improve based on these milestones that you set for yourself and this step
Mhm.
by step process that you want to take. Yeah, that would be my answer.
So, Adis, do you say that to be a very good speaker, we should go to the workshop? Do you agree with that statement?
I don't think so because you can go to workshops as often as you want, but if
Mm-hmm.
you don't practice it like with people around you, like you don't practice it in classes, for example, then all the knowledge that you get from the workshop would not necessarily transfer to real life experience. So it's more of like doing it yourself. Sometimes you don't need to go to a workshop. You just need to speak more to your friends. You need to like speak up and volunteer in classes. And that is far worthier than like having to pay for workshops, for example.
I see. Okay. I get something new today. Thank you, Anis. All right. For Sister Aida,
Mhm.
so what do you think are the importance of putting yourself out there and vying for membership and position in organizations and clubs?
So, when it comes to the importance, like we all know the standard answers is that like you need to get as much experiences as possible, blah 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 blah. But then I feel like you putting yourself, the importance of putting yourself out there is especially because that people don't know your capability in itself. Like you know what you're capable of and your threshold on doing like enduring stress or like what you can handle and what you cannot handle, but people don't know that. So like when you put yourself out there, when you join all these kind of things, you're opening up opportunities for yourself. Besides that, you also like what do you call, sorry, you open up opportunities for yourself, but also you are opening up, like you're showing to other people what you're capable of, especially of achieving for yourself and for the team members what in whatever you've joined. So like yeah, you don't have to push yourself like if you don't feel comfortable, but it is important to note that if you do, you are putting, when you put yourself out there, people realize what you can do, and then you gain exposure, like the community around you gain exposure of what you can do in itself. So yeah, I feel like that's basically the
Yeah.
importance of it. Yeah. Yeah, also like especially like the higher up people, they don't have the time to like get to know you. They don't have the time to like, oh, I know what you're good at. So like you have to be pushing yourself forward and like be like, oh, actually, I can do this, I can do that. Like, yeah, basically that.
It is like we have to put ourselves out of the comfort zone, is it?
Yeah, yeah, but like
Mm-hmm.
don't, if you're not completely comfortable with it, it's okay also. Yeah, just don't push yourself to a point that you're gonna break and like regret at the end of the day.
Yeah, true. I agree with that because when I am joining IIUM to be
Mm-hmm.
a host, it's actually one of the things that out of my comfort zone. It's actually pushed by my friend, challenged by my friend, but actually I take it as like I need to try something new in my life. So
Mm-hmm.
Alhamdulillah, and I saw Aida being one of the hosts also before this. Thank you for your experience by watching your video. Also give me a
Oh
very
yeah.
great knowledge. All right, for Anis, uh, how is it that we can overcome our shyness? This is very common to all of the people out there, right? Our fear of judgment when it comes to speaking in front of numbers of strangers. So, what do you think about that?
I think firstly it goes back to what you said. Like you're speaking in front of a number of strangers. So
Mm-hmm.
these are people that you may or may not know, right? Most of the time it's people that you don't know. And sometimes it's people that you're not going to meet in the future anymore, like if it's a one-time presentation thing. So a good mindset to have is that to actually like block out their faces or even think that even if they do have some judgments towards you, then their judgments shouldn't matter because they're not your friends. They're not people who matter to you. So it shouldn't be bothering you what they think about how you're speaking, especially if it's something that you've worked so hard on. It shouldn't bother you that what other people are thinking might diminish whatever value you've put into your work. But secondly, I guess that brings me to the point where you need to be confident in what you're talking about. And I think I understand like sometimes people say that being confident is easier said than done. Like sometimes it's so hard for you to be confident about something, right? So regardless of what you're talking about, maybe being a competition or a speech in front of an event, for example, or even a presentation in class, I think the key is for you to firstly understand what exactly are you going to talk about. Like if you're going to talk about a subject, a topic, for example, do your research first and make sure you have faith in what you're talking about. So that way, like even if people question or if people look at you judgmentally, for example, you know that you've got this sorted out. You've done all that you could to understand it, and you are able to present it with confidence, like because of the research that you've done, for example, or because of the understanding that you have over that topic. So I believe that that is the best way for you to become like a more confident speaker in general, to be confident in what you're saying first. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Very, very answer the questions. I once attended a public speaking class during my foundation years where some of the students say that when you were doing your public speaking, just pretend that in front of you are the potatoes or you don't have to wear specs. So what do you say about that? Is it like one of the tips for them who are actually shy or fear in doing public speaking?
Mm, you could try that, but I don't think that when you're up there, you would actually be able to sort like the way that you're thinking into thinking that they're all potatoes, for example. So maybe if you are like a really shy person and there's only like one person that you actually know in the crowd, like a teacher or a parent or a friend, for example, focus on that face. So at least like you're not thinking too much about the people around them. That would probably be like a much better advice from my perspective.
I see. Thank you, Anis. All right. Moving on to Aida back. So Aida, regarding your achievement, which is being the grand finalist in novice category for Malaysia Women's Debate Championship. Oh my God. So what would you say the skill that are needed to be a debater or even just a good speaker?
Okay, so like a fair disclaimer before I move on to my answer is that I personally don't think I'm a good debater at all. That achievement, I feel like it was purely out of luck, to be honest, because it was my first time joining a tournament also, and it was somehow that I managed to get into the grand final itself. So in a way, it's kind of a luck, but at the same time, like me and my partner, we train also before that. So, like in terms of becoming a good speaker or a good debater, like what Anita has mentioned before, is that to be confident in yourself. Because what I've learned in my debating experience so far is that you can like some of the greatest debaters that I've watched and or seen, they don't necessarily say the very like the smartest thing in the room. They can say the most like probably racist things, stupidest thing that you could imagine of, but they somehow would get a higher score compared to everyone else just because that they can manage to relay their points in a manner that people would believe them. So as long as you're confident in what you're saying, even though you're bullshitting your whole way through, you have a better chances of like winning the round itself. So um so yeah, and then moving on to like my second point on how to become a good speaker itself is not to be afraid or like too too afraid to say what you want to say, because um a thing I learned from all my trainings before that, and my friend always mentioned, is that um it's okay, like even the trainers also keep mentioning it, is that it's okay that you started out bad, because everyone started out somewhere. The important thing is to be very consistent and to continuously improve yourself and come to weekly trainings and all that stuff, because that's what the weekly trainings are for, to help you improve. And then in our club society itself, we have a very good, so we are surrounded by people who are willingly and everyday and committedly helping us to get better in debating itself. So as long as you have confidence and you're willing to improve, because like nobody is smart or like good debater in the first place. So as long as you're willing to improve yourself and like receive criticism and come to trainings and all that stuff, you will become a good speaker at the end of the day. I
So
hope that
in a
answers
sim
you.
yeah, in a simple way, I would say that practice makes perfect in everything that we are doing.
Yeah,
All
exactly.
right. Uh, Go back to Anis. So how do you reel in the intention of the audience again when you realize that they are zoning out of after a period of time?
Okay, so I think there's two ways to do it, like generally. So the first is that if you are a funny person in general, someone who has the capacity to crack jokes or to make interesting remarks throughout your speech, then that is definitely the direction that you want to go into. Like you would want to do something funny that would make people like pay attention to you once again. But the reality is that it's not everyone is humorous or not everyone is spontaneous. Like if you're like me, for example, I'm really incapable of cracking jokes or being spontaneous. So what I would suggest you to do is that you have like a set of questions that you can use to engage your audience with. For example, like if it's a speech, like a 20-minute speech or a presentation that you know people would most definitely get bored of like towards like halfway. So maybe you want to engage with the audience, make sure that they're understanding what you're trying to say. But I think sometimes it just cannot be helped because some people just don't want to be interested in what you're saying. So don't focus on the people who clearly are like playing with their phones or doing something else. Focus on the people who are like who at least have the want to listen to what you have to say and make sure you engage with them instead. And I think like generally like how to speak in a manner in which people would get bored of what you're saying is to also make sure that you don't speak in a same tone for the rest of the speech.
Um,
Like sometimes people end up getting monotonous, right? They sound as if they're reading from a book or as if they're reading from a speech. And like we're students, we're people who listen to like lectures or like opening speeches all the time, and we know we get bored when we listen to things like that. So try not to sound too monotonous or too scripted, and inshallah people will be interested in what you have to say, or at least like your ups and downs in your volume, in your style. Those are things that will make people stay with you until the end of your speech.
I see. So actually, those who are watching like this live, that is one of the tips for you guys to be yourself, be confident if you are doing a public speaking in front of numerous numbers of strangers. So okay, for Anis and Aida, I heard that both of you are involved in an amazing project with IIUM English Debate Club, where it calls Beyond 7 Minutes. Am I right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
true.
So, what was actually the history behind this establishment of the podcast beyond 7 minutes, and what is the uh, podcast is about? What is it stand for? Can you tell us what is it about?
Okay, if you allow me to speak on this question, is that okay? So first and foremost, like our advisor came to us, the at school group member, and saying that she wants something to help break the barrier between debaters and non-debaters, because like to a certain extent, debaters like we like there's a mindset that, oh, debaters are like this very kind of elitist group of people, like So there's a gap between debaters and non-debaters. So the purpose of this program is to break that, to make debating more accessible to everyday normal people, and not just people who have been committed to debating itself for a few years already. So the idea of a podcast came from our own president, Sister Hannah Zawawi. She mentioned that, oh, maybe we can do it in a form of a podcast. So it's because that people can just watch it when they're free. It feels less stressful, less rigid, less formal. So when people listen to it, they're not gonna feel like those intense adrenaline that they have, like people usually have when speaking in front or like public setting, in a debating setting, all that stuff. But yeah, so basically that's how the idea of a podcast came. So the reason why the name Beyond 7 Minutes came about is that in a normal British Parliament setting, a debate speech would consist of 7 minutes. So
Mm-hmm.
beyond 7 minutes would mean that what's happening in outside of debaters' lives. So we
I
feel like if
see.
we, yeah, so we feel like if we expose the outside of the debating life itself, like these debaters, what they're doing outside of their life. So like we have like some sort of like relatableness or like relevancy in that terms itself. So like our goal is to invite people who are very closely related to the topics that we want to talk about. Like these topics are usually like related to debate topics, like the things we debate about often. So when we do this, when we invite this kind of people, they're gonna be like talking passionately about it and all that stuff. So we feel like it provides some sort of like a window into the debater's personal life, but also at the same time gonna be like encouraging and teaching people on new things that they can learn about. Yeah.
Ada,
Yeah.
do you have anything to add up on
Yeah.
this beyond 7 minutes?
Yeah, sure. So like I think continuing from the history part, right? So what exactly
Mm-hmm.
do we want to what is the message that we want to send to our listeners, to our viewers, for
Mm.
example? So what we do want is that we want to create a platform whereby discussions about issues that are serious could happen on a more conversational basis. Because we understand that there are a lot of important issues, a lot of famous issues that are talked about in debate competitions that might not necessarily be talked about in public, for example. Like there are things that we know that we want to share with other people. And these aren't things that you should know just because you're a debater. These are general knowledge that you should know because you're a person. You just need to know things about what's happening in the world, how you can actually play a role in making a change. And this is what we're trying to bring to our listeners. So we have people like being IIUM English Debate Club. We've had a lot of achievement in the past, and this brought us to having like good relations towards people in the international debating circuit.
Mm-mm.
Most of the time these are people who have who are like, for example, our first guest the other day, the co-founder and editor of Oxford Political Review. These are people with specific stance or positions, and they have the capacity to speak about things that we want people to know of. So we want to bridge that gap in a way in which people don't feel as if they're excluded from the narrative, or in a way in which people don't feel like watching because it's something that only debaters should watch. So hopefully
Mm-mm.
by this initiative, we are hoping that we are able to round up like more people who are interested to learn more. We want to cultivate the idea of learning itself. Yep. I hope that is what can be understood about the message behind our podcast.
So the people who are going to involve through the podcast would be the debaters, is it? Both of you, including both of you?
In terms of okay, in terms of like the committee members itself, we're generally consist of the debaters itself, among
Ah,
us debaters, but we're also like looking to expand our team in the future, in the near, very, very near future, as soon as the exam seasons are over. But yeah, in terms of like inviting guests, we're not specific to just debaters, but like we're planning also to invite people who are icon of political movements and all that stuff. So like we can also like the idea of talking about debate related topics can also be talked about like people who are not debaters. So like people can also feel like the gap between debaters and non-debaters can also be closed. Hopefully, yeah.
I see. Wow, it's a very new and brilliant idea to actually give the benefit to all of the people, maybe to the IIUM students, especially out there. So, last questions to both of you. So, what do you hope that the listeners uh, can get out from the podcast?
Can
Okay. Okay. Do you want me to answer this? Okay, I can answer this. All right. So, because we're already trying to bring in speakers who are knowledgeable in their respective fields, for example, what we're hoping is that the information that our listeners get from these discussions is something that they can use in like their day-to-day experiences. So, for example, if we're talking about journalism, as in the first episode, or if we're going to talk about other issues in the future, like terrorism or sexual harassment, for example, we want this to be things that like when they go through their daily lives, when they read newspapers, they will remember the discussions that they've heard from our
Mhm.
podcast, and they will be able to understand those issues better, because we understand that sometimes in general issues, for example, especially if it's something that seems so distant from them, something that is so hard to understand, it's often that people shy away from these discussions or refuse to speak up on these issues because they don't think that they understand enough. We want to make sure they're able to understand that in the most simplest way possible. So because a podcast is easy to listen to, right? You can listen to it in the car, you can watch it on IGTV if you want to, you can listen to it like when you're walking to some place. We're hoping that this is something that can catch on their mind, that they can like actually like remember, and
Mhm.
inshallah that it could leave an impact on society, that we are able to disseminate the information that is needed for like the betterment of the society in general. Yeah.
All right. Okay, I think I would say that all the best on the podcast to all of you. I hope that the podcast will run smoothly, inshallah. So,
Mhm.
to the guys out there, Alhamdulillah, I think that we have reached at the end of this. Thank you again to our guests for tonight. But wait, I think Anis has something to promote. So, Anis, what is it that you want to promote?
So considering the fact that we want the best quality for our podcast, we're actually going to take some period of time to improve ourselves and to learn from our past experiences mostly, because that the ones that we have released is our first episode, and that we found out through the production process that there is so much more for us to learn to make sure that like in the future we are able to deliver a more perfect episode. So we are planning to take some time off to work out on those flaws or on those minor mistakes that needs improvement. But also in this period of time, like Aida said earlier, since we're taking some time off, we're also looking into recruiting more people for our team. We don't want it to be just a debaters only team. We want people to be able to work behind the scenes with us and engage with the guests with us as well. So stay tuned, follow our Instagram page Beyond 7 Minutes, and we will be updating there on when exactly will the recruitment drive start and what positions are up for grabs.
Mhm.
Um, Also, an important note that we want to relay is that considering the fact that we want to make it as accessible and like to touch on as many topics as possible, we're also going to try to collaborate with any organizations that want to share the information that they have. So in case you are representing any organization, be it an IIUM organization or an external university organization, I hope that you can reach out to us if you want to collaborate with us, and we would be more than glad to help you share the information together. Aida, do you have
Definitely.
anything else you want to add to that?
Nothing else to add. Like we're very looking forward to having more people joining us because
Yeah.
the more the merrier people, and we have big plans in the future. Whoever joins can like get the taste of that fun also.
Inshallah, inshallah. I'll pray the best for the idea. And I think that most of you, all of you who want to know more updates, more detail, more information about the podcast, you can just follow the Instagram page, is it? Beyond 7 minutes.
Yeah.
All right, as usual, to all of you who are watching, do subscribe, like, comment, and share. And of course, give it a thumbs up on our YouTube and Spotify channel. Follow IIUM TV on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for more information. So see you soon, all of you, inshallah, live after this from IIUM studio. So bye-bye. Thank you, Anis and Aida. Assalamualaikum. Selamat Hari Raya.
And thank you for having us. Selamat Hari Raya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.